That's why we do these things.
They tried to pivot at one time.
GeoCities archive.
Oh.
Wow. MySpace looks like...
Does it look like Facebook now?
No.
Good.
It's mainly for music.
It looks like BuzzFeed. It looks like a news site.
Yeah, they pivoted a long time ago.
Mission Impossible 7 and 8 will no longer be filmed back to back.
No.
One of you guys said like GeoCities. What was the other one? Angel Fire?
Angel Fire, yeah.
Angel Fire.
I had that. Yep.
Okay, he said he could hear us now.
Cool. Thanks for the heads up, buddy.
All right, so I'm ready whenever you guys are. I have my backup recording going.
Cool.
See if I don't butcher the intro again the first time.
Well, practice it. Go through it.
One sec.
Just blame me. It's cool.
I'm to blame. It's okay.
Just remember, we're super professional. We've been doing this a long time.
200 episodes in, I still don't consider myself a professional. It's always funny when we have a guest on the show and, seeing the expressions of how the sausage is made before the show.
Yep. And I never hear from him again.
I know. They come here. Some crazy guy starts asking them questions that are, should be left for the podcast.
Although we have a pretty good track record of having people on that really blow up in popularity and fame after being on the show too.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Let me go hide my skeletons.
You just transport them to a different dimension.
Ew. Stargate.
I'm just waiting for the thumbs up from Wes.
Yep.
Okay. It's 6:38, so let's go ahead and do it. All right, what's up, everybody? Actually, no. Damn it. I'm going to start over again.
See? Told you.
We've changed the format of the show a little bit, so I don't quite have the rhythm yet. So, all right. So now we'll go ahead and start. We don't have DeLoreans, but we have a podcast. Welcome to the Making Geeks podcast, a podcast for makers. God damn it. See, I did it again.
Are we doing families and geeks or parents and geeks?
Families, makers, and geeks.
Makers, families, and geeks.
See, makers. See, I would have messed up again. Makers, families, and geeks. Makers is first.
Wait, should I watch my language?
We can bleep. We just.
I just.
Things slip through every now and then. It's all right. All right, let's try this one more time. We don't have DeLoreans. We have a podcast. Welcome to the Making Geeks podcast, a podcast for makers, families, and geeks. So, guys, how you doing today?
Good, man. How are you?
Doing all right. I also want to introduce, we have a special guest today, Dr. Ross Carroll, Associate Professor of Physics at Arkansas State University.
How's it going?
Good, man.
So I'm glad to have you on. I was trying to remember before because when we were getting set up, I thought I had met you somewhere else, but did we just meet online through the Facebook group? Is that how we came in contact? Okay.
The original group.
Yeah, the original group.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
In the olden days when Yeah,
I got a magic direct message from this Wes Swain character to go to some magic
Characters,
forum.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even know
So
how we crossed paths. I think it was just on Instagram or something, right? Originally.
Twitter.
Twitter?
I was like posting random crap on Twitter there.
That sounds about
I think
right.
I was playing with like RGB LEDs with my Arduinos. And
Gotcha.
such.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you accepted that message.
Same.
And the rest is history, as they say.
There you go. Yeah.
So have you guys heard of that thing, like, was it 7 Degrees of Kevin Bacon?
Yep.
Where I think we need to do that for Wes. Because I think it's not the 7 degrees. I think it's like 3 degrees for Wes. We need like a flow chart of Wes and how he's connected to everybody at some point in time. I think that'd be like an amazing thing to look at. I think when Geeks Craft should actually do that as a map, as one of their laser maps.
I like it.
I don't think Facebook has API access to like all of that yet. I would love
Wes
to see
can just
that
look in his
network
text
graph.
message. Wes can just look in his text message history and we can figure it all out.
That'd be an interesting thing for like the Mickey Geeks wiki for somebody to take on.
It's a good idea.
So other than trying to stay warm in all the various parts of the country, you guys been up to this week? Any special projects you're working on?
Not particularly. Just still trying to get some video stuff out. Still making a digital chore tracker for my kids. Taking a little bit longer than I wanted to. Some of the weather has been keeping some of the kids home when I was not expecting them to be. But just other things popping up here and there. But yeah, just plugging along. Nothing too much to announce.
Pretty
Donovan, how
much
about you?
stuck given the weather and COVID and all that. I've been working on high altitude balloon payloads. So I've got some cameras, I got Arduinos. I'm ready to put it 100,000 feet in the air.
That's right. That's the first
Waiting.
time you and I met in person.
Yep.
Was the solar eclipse.
Yeah, so we flew a high altitude balloon. Tried to image. Well, I guess we did image the solar eclipse from the upper atmosphere.
And some other cool things, if I remember correctly.
A lot of things failed, but I got a couple good pictures.
Did you send that footage to all the flat earther groups and just kind of troll them?
Oh, they showed up to a public talk that we had at a conference once. It was fascinating. Yeah. They said Earth's flat and walked away or whatever. we laughed and all.
Wow.
Who'd you
Man,
go?
the stories you have, Wes, I never cease to be amazed. Yeah, the first time we met each other, we were launching balloons in the upper stratosphere to get a picture of the solar eclipse. Because who can say that?
I mean, it's all in a
Right.
day's work. I mean, everybody does that, right?
Oh, gosh.
Well, we'll be doing
That's
it again in 2024.
Yo.
April
We need an
8th. April 8th.
Anthology of Wes meetup stories. Gosh.
That's a whole separate podcast.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
I was gonna have a video out tomorrow, but I want to do a quick PSA for our maker friends out there who may be experiencing cold weather. That if you have a laser cutter and it is located somewhere, let's say in your garage, and it's cold outside, let's say below freezing, and that temperature gets anywhere near your laser cutter, the water inside your tube will freeze, and it will shatter. It will shatter your tube. Ugh. I came home for lunch today, and I was going to cut out my final for my mini Muppets movie theater, and so I turned my system on to get the pump going, to turn the laser cutter on, all this other kind of stuff. I ran inside to grab something to eat. I came back out, and there was water everywhere. And I was like, what is going on? Did it snow inside the garage? And I was trying to trace the water back to its source, and it was all coming out the back of my laser cutter. And I opened up the thing, and sure enough, it burst my laser tube. So my video that I was gonna have out tomorrow with my mini Muppet movie theater is now gonna have to be postponed while I wait for a new tube. Gosh. But I did get good recommendations on using antifreeze and reverse osmosis water. Didn't know about that, and all kinds of stuff to help improve my laser cutting experience and avoid problems like this in the future. So I'm kind of dead in the water in terms of my laser, but I got a board to drill my CNC to. So my laser cutter's down. I guess it's going to give me a chance to learn how to CNC.
Now, when your final one was going to be in wood, right? Or no? Was it still
Yeah,
cardboard?
it was going to be in wood. And honestly, like this one is almost as good enough to use as a final product.
Yeah,
I
but
just told you last week.
it is like half of it is advertising my daughter's Girl Scout cookies. But all of the designs of like Statler and Waldorf, and I put the Swedish Chef on the other side with the big bucket of popcorn because if you haven't seen the video, it's the Swedish Chef doing popcorn. Fantastic video. Fantastic. I was like, popcorn, movie theaters, Swedish Chef, perfect. So I put the Swedish Chef on the other side, did designs for the curtains, did all the people that have sent me pictures, and it was all going to be cut out of wood because you can't etch on cardboard without taking off the top layer of the cardboard. So have to do it on wood in the long run. But like I said, it's going to give me a chance to figure out how to work a CNC.
When you're showing the cardboard mock-up right there, I saw like a label on the inside, I guess like the inside ceiling of it. You just spray it. Yeah, whatever. You can just spray that brown, like spray paint it brown, and hide it if you need to.
Yeah, Keith Deason actually gave me an idea to use veneer and cloth, and he gave me a lot of ideas to make it super cool. A lot more work, but in the end, it'll be awesome.
As far as your laser goes, it probably wouldn't have mattered if the water was too cold. But do you leave your pump on all the time, or do you only turn it on when you're using a laser?
I only turn it on when I'm using a laser, just so the water can drain out. Well, at least I thought it drained out. Because I have my water and my water pump sitting below it and going up, and so when it's not open, so it's not pumping, most of the time the water just drains back down into the bucket because air pressure and physics,
Some sciencey stuff.
But that didn't happen this time.
It also expands because of physics, right?
And because of physics.
I just leave my water pump on all the time now, and not that it gets cold enough here to probably freeze, but I figure just having constant circulation through it is not a bad thing. But maybe I'm wrong too. I don't know. We'll find out.
Wes, should you leave a pump on all the time?
Oh.
I don't, just because it's a little noisy and it's right beside my desk. And also it doesn't get cold enough in my basement, thankfully, to freeze when we have power. Granted, if it had gotten cold enough where our power did go out and we didn't have any heat down here, I would not have thought, that would not be my first thought, is to save the laser. I just wouldn't have thought of that. I mean, it makes sense when you say it in retrospect. Yeah, it's perfect. It makes perfect sense. But
and apparently
it would not have been my first thing on the checklist.
Yeah, I'm not the only one that this has happened to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Jimmy Dresta had talked about it happening to him too in one of his shops. So it happens. It's common. This week I'm still working on the design for the All Queen's chess, but I'm waiting on some more material. But I'm working on, I got a logo commission that I'm currently working on right now. So I have some artwork that I'm doing that I haven't done. Well, I've been doing artwork pretty consistently, but not usually for other people like this. So it's interesting having to do work for a client again, where they have a say in the design. So I guess I get to practice those skills again. And I'm kind of putting a hold on some projects until Monday because, I have a new toy coming on Monday. So I get to test out a Glowforge
Oh,
that's coming on Monday. And at the same time, I think I just convinced one of my admins to buy a Glowforge for my department. So I might
Using
have
your referral code?
Nice.
maybe, maybe not. It depends if there's a, well, we'll see. We actually might end up getting a couple of them depending on the direction we take for my department right now. So very, very interesting stuff.
Nice.
Yep. So for everybody listening, we have a special guest on the show, which I mentioned before, and that's Dr. Ross Carroll, who is a professor of physics. And because we talk about movies a lot on the show, and we end up liking a lot of the sci-fi movies, a lot of the ones in the popular culture, we thought, how cool would it be to have on an actual physicist to talk about time travel in movies? Because, when it comes to a lot of that stuff, I'm a dum-dum. I don't know if it...
Everybody's wrong. Let me set you straight.
But I mean, time travel has had such a huge presence in so many different movies, and there seems to be so many different takes on how it would possibly work, if it is even possible. I don't know, but that's why we have the professional here.
Yeah. Time travel is absolutely possible. We're experiencing it right now. It's just the boring type, right?
Yeah, in a very linear fashion, yes.
Yes.
One way.
Of course, I'm the weird physicist that I love talking about the mechanics of it, but I'll also talk about how time travel is a narrative mechanism in our fiction. Right. So
I think you
it's
just
sort
lost
of like
half our audience.
it's a fancy way that
Sure.
you can spice up your narrative, right? You don't have to get the time travel right necessarily to.
Sure. There's so many different ways to go
Let me
about
get
it.
a new setting, right?
Right.
Let's put this Yankee in King Arthur's court or whatever. I'm tired of the classic narrative structure. Let me chop it up. Make Memento or whatever.
Yeah, one that really plays with the time.
Yes.
Yeah, that's one of those things. Like it's completely disingenuous to just tell a story backwards, right? Unless you make it believable.
Right.
Memento is one of those examples.
So you invent rules and mechanisms in order for it to seem somewhat plausible to serve the story.
And now you start putting it like, okay, let's start putting some special or general relativity like nuggets in there. It doesn't have to be right. It's just
Hook you. Yep.
Yeah.
So we didn't really talk about how to start this off. I don't know if you guys want to start with talking about a specific movie first, or
Let's just go around and just kind of just off your hip, just fire off a couple, your favorite ones, whether or not they're relative or general relative or what have you.
should we start with the big one?
Yeah, the most recent one. Not going into a lot of detail on it, but I think we definitely deserve a mention of Tenet. Would you say?
Yeah, I mean the one of the reasons why we came up with this topic to begin with and kind of sent us down this path was that we recently saw, at least Donovan West and I saw the movie Tenet, which uses time travel as its primary narrative structure. I mean, the whole thing, it really evolves around being able to, I guess, control time in a manner of speaking. And that kind of sent us down this path of talking about time travel in movies and led us to having our guest on the show today. I don't know what specifically you want to talk about with Tenet, because there's so much that it's so cloudy.
Without spoiling anything, right?
Right.
And just in case, if anybody listening has not seen Tenet, feel free to kind of maybe skip ahead a couple minutes. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on it, but we'll probably cover. we might cover just like a very general overview of the concept, and maybe move on to more recognizable and more well known examples of time travel in movies.
I do have to say personally that in terms of time travel in movies, Tenet is probably one of my favorite. And
I'm surprised.
as far as like not being convoluted or you can't think about too much, because then the whole narrative structure like comes apart. Or
wait. You didn't find it convoluted?
I've watched it a few times.
Oh, it does help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never mind then.
See, Tenet is one of those movies where it's like you can't watch it just once. Like you have to watch it several times in order to pick up on everything that's going on at any one given time.
Yeah, it's like
Because
Inception within Inception, like level.
Yeah, because so much of it overlaps.
Yeah.
And yeah, I really enjoyed it. There was a lot of questions that I still don't quite have answers to, but I'm okay with that. I think I'm okay with that. Not that I could talk about it without spoiling anything, so I'm not going to.
To better make use of our guest and involve him in the conversation, do either one of you think you can kind of explain the basic premise of time travel in the movie? Because I'm not even sure if I can.
The inversion, right? Is that what they called it, Wes?
I believe
That's
that's what they called
yeah.
it, but that doesn't really explain anything.
Right. The concept that you can go back in time or reverse time, but you're running through it backwards.
Yeah, you reverse the entropy of matter so that it goes back in time while everything around it is going forward in time.
Yeah, so you have different objects and different people running forward in time in an area that is running backwards and vice versa. So you can see like a car careening down the street in reverse, but when you see his sequence, he's the one going forward and everyone else is going reverse. So it sort of shows different perspectives of the same event at different times.
This at the same time.
And then they mix in like car chases using this mechanism, and it's just like mind bending. And then gunfights and fist fights using one person going forwards while another person is going backwards. And it's just, I mean, you see that much in the trailer, and it's just crazy. And then by the time they loop back to the end, there are things that start like explaining themselves, and you're like, oh, that's what this was, and oh, that's what this is. So it's like the whole movie is a giant callback on itself, like self-referential on several layers, and it doesn't just go forward and backwards, or forward and then backwards. It's like a snake, basically. Yeah, it's all intertwisting, and it's still one river, but it's following the loops and the paths, and you got like rivers intertwining each other and like flowing in opposite directions within the same space. It's really weird, but without spoiling it too much, I think
it was trippy that they were able to kind of imbue those properties into an object.
Right.
Yeah.
See, it sounds like the writers learned a little bit about quantum electrodynamics, or the history of like Richard Feynman, for instance. You ever heard of Feynman diagrams? They're simple little diagrams of how particles might interact, right? And they basically represent how they move through time. So like two electrons interact, and perhaps they can make two gamma rays, or two gamma rays come together and generate an electron-anti-electron pair. Okay, it's a fancy way of like describing how particles interact. But what some people have noticed, and again, it's probably just us applying our human model-making minds to it, antiparticles in these models appear to be real matter moving backwards through time.
Wow.
Right. Is that really what's happening? I don't know.
Is that
it's an explanation, perhaps, when you draw, for instance, anti-electron electron annihilation. From this model in particular, you can say, well, this is actually a real electron moving backwards through time that interacted with an electron from another particular spot.
Is that related to like superposition at all?
Superposition?
The idea of like two of the same matter occupying two different spaces in time?
Oh, well, I mean, really, it's a representation of how particles might interact. So yeah, you can kind of imagine it. It's here's a couple particles, magic, and then X-rays come out, gamma rays, whatever. But with quantum electrodynamics, things are so weird. You have to account for like every possible
step
interaction.
for profit. Yeah.
In there,
yeah.
But it's just one of those things people notice. Like, hey, what if anti-particles are real particles moving backwards through time? It feels good for a physicist, and it could just be us, tilting at windmills or whatever,
So, do you have a desire to see Tenet, or do you just feel like you're going to sit there the
I
whole
do.
time? Just
I do now.
you do now.
Yeah.
All right,
I
let's hold
remember the trailer.
Yeah, I really liked the movie. And one of the reasons why I liked it in terms of time travel is that everything is linear. It's not like other movies where when they time travel, it creates like a parallel dimension and then you've got these branches going off and like the fourth. No, it's like one line and you're just going back and forth on the same line. Now, one of the lines in the movie that I really like is one of the characters, Neil, talking about, what's going on in terms of the plot. He says, what's happened has happened. So all of this is happening as if it's already happened. And he's resigning himself to, whatever the future or the past holds. Cause he's like, whatever's happens. Like we can't change it. We're just going along for the ride. And I really like that because it doesn't share the same narrative that a lot of other time traveling movies do.
I guess that's that idea that it's all that when is
Predestination.
now, right?
Oh, yeah.
When is now?
It was then.
Wow.
Get into Spaceballs territory, yeah.
Just now.
We're just looking at a frame of a bigger object or whatever. Yeah.
So what are some of the other favorites, you guys? Donovan, what are some of yours off the top of your head? What are some of your favorite time travel movies?
It's not a movie, but I do really like Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency. And those are words. It's based on a book by Douglas Adams, who wrote Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So if you can get that type of British humor and narrative structure, it's Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy with time travel and murder solving and stuff like that. It's funny. It's really funny. But it does involve time travel a lot. Tenet is another one. Back to the Future is a classic. I don't know if you can say that you don't like it. I don't not like it. It's okay.
Well,
In
I
terms
think we
of
should
time
talk.
travel movies.
Let's talk about Back to the Future for a moment, if you guys are.
You can't talk about this subject and not.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, because when I said the big one, I was actually referring to Back to the Future, but you guys automatically went into Tenet.
I thought that's what you're referring to.
Great Scott.
No, the reason why I was going to hint towards talking Back to the Future first, and I don't know if this is similar for anybody else, but I think Back to the Future, at least to my memory, is the first movie that I remember seeing that really heavily dealt with time travel. And the movie came out in, I think, 1985 and 1986. So I was roughly 8 or 9 when I saw it. I think I saw it in the theater with my dad. And I remember specifically, we went out to eat after we saw the movie, and he told me he didn't get the movie. And at 8 years old, I had to explain it to him about how going back in time kind of changed for the future. And, I know a lot of people have talked about time travel since and said that's not how it would work at all. Well, it didn't matter to me when I was 8. It still had that kind of impact on me. And, it kind of made sense, and Ross, like you were saying earlier, in terms of like being a mechanism for narrative, and it completely worked. Even if it's, total crap in terms of the science, it made that kind of impact on a lot of people wanting to look at time travel and the possibilities. So I think it's fantastic for that reason alone. But that's
And especially all the sequels
absolutely.
and everything. I think that they do a good job of like making things tie together and like do a lot of callbacks and things to pay homage to itself in a way, but also like reward the people for paying attention to all the little minutia and everything. And I think it's a really well crafted story. Like there's a couple of plot holes that people will love to make fun at and poke at, but I think overall, considering how complex, a lot of the things that they're trying to do in that movie was, especially for the time, it's quite an achievement.
And
I really
just
enjoy it.
being openly wrong about something in science is what drives it forward.
Sure.
right.
Or just, inspiring people. Like, okay, well, this is actually wrong. It's not going to happen in a DeLorean. Obviously, we need a McLaren. All right. But even in physics, we see something kind of like that. A lot of people come out, whenever quantum mechanics came around, there's all this reason to talk about superstition and the quantum woo. that kind of stuff, right? And a lot of modern day, like quantum computing, quantum cryptography, all this like high dollar industry stuff came from people just trying to disprove the wacky ideas. It's like, oh, I'm going to read your mind with quantum physics. Actually, no, but we just birthed quantum computing or whatever out of it. So it's
That's an interesting
perfectly
way to
great
go
to be
about
like
it. Yeah,
wrong about physics out in the open because you're inspiring people
sure.
to get after it.
It's sort of like the top
I don't
Top
mind
Gun.
like suspending my disbelief
Right.
about a DeLorean.
It's like the effect that Top Gun had with people enlisting in the Navy. Even like a lot of the
That's
crap
why I
that they show
enlisted.
in there is like completely wrong. Me being an ex-sailor, I was able to like, oh, that's wrong. That's stupid. Why'd they do that? He's got a patch on for a squadron that's not even F-14 squadron. Like blah 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 blah. Blah. But like
What's this, Captain Crunch?
it like I say, it just inspired a whole generation of people that might not have gone down that path, with just a mild interest in it or making it like a career choice. And I think
Like the Scully effect, right?
sure.
FBI. Hoping you have a partner that looks like her.
I think my first exposure to time travel was A Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
I don't think I initially ever thought about that as time travel, or then more like a possible future, but not really time
He goes
travel.
back in time and looks at himself too.
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
Yeah,
It's a Ghost of Christmas Past, bro.
I guess you're right.
It's not the fun time travel.
Looking back at your flaws.
So as a physicist, like what time travel movies do you like?
Oh, time travel movies.
Primer?
There's a lot of that I just haven't actually gotten into. There's
Yeah.
a whole like, I guess around grad school and whatnot. I just focus on the physics, right? I tend to focus on series, right? So I'm a Stargate fan. I'm all about that. So there's that kind of time travel. Obviously, they're doing space travel.
Go
Space
on.
time travel, right?
Ah.
Every once in a while, the Stargate gets shot or whatever, and they get moved off into another time or whatever, right? Again, Back to the Future was the big one throughout my life.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I haven't seen Interstellar or Primer. Some of these newer ones I get shamed
Quantum
about.
Leap?
Oh yeah. Oh, there you go.
That was time travel, right? Sort of.
Yeah.
I love that show.
I haven't thought about that in so long, but yeah.
Neither have I until you started talking about series, and I'm like, what TV series has dealt with time travel?
Yeah.
Quantum
Uh,
Leap.
And newer times, Continuum. I
Never saw
particularly
that
like that one.
Continuum.
Yeah, lady from like 2088 in the corporate states of America or whatever comes back from time, from the future. And it's a fun narrative, whatever the case. They at least try to make it science-y of sorts.
Yeah.
What do you think they get wrong the most in terms of just the physics of it all?
Oh, probably most of the time travel aspects, right?
Pretty much all
The
of it.
the one that's right is that moving clocks tick slower, right? Or clocks close to mass tick slower. That's special in general relativity, right? So if I happen to be working next to the proximity of a black hole for some time, the universe around me has much faster clocks. So I time travel in a sense, in a real way, by basically experiencing a certain amount of time, and everybody else experiences a heck of a lot more.
And
That's again not a fun type of time
Right.
travel, though.
then
It's boring,
the aspect with astronauts.
and everybody's dead.
Yeah.
Right? You die in that time travel. You go to the far future. Who comes with you?
an aspect with like astronauts that have spent like a lot of time in space are at a slightly different amount of time than like people that have not been. I mean, I think that's fascinating too.
Our GPS system, for instance, wouldn't work if we didn't make that correction. So I guess be specific here. I'm saying whenever you're close to a mass, a gravity well of sorts, space-time is distorted around it. And when you are close to that distortion, your clock ticks slower than one that's far away from it.
Wait, so the clock on like satellites click faster?
So they would click at a different rate. Yes. So like this was predicted by Einstein's work. It was first confirmed basically in Princeton, New Jersey. You take two atomic clocks, they're really sensitive clocks, one in a basement, one on a 5th floor. Let them tick for a while. You notice they were synchronized at one time. Now they're not. It's minor. They're very minor changes there. But it's spot on for what Einstein would have predicted in that case. And that still applies between low Earth orbit and Earth. So the clocks that make up our GPS system, or the GLONASS system, if you want to go with the Russian one there, they're just clocks that are screaming what time it is. That's all. That's
fascinating.
Right? And they're farther away from Earth. They tick a little faster than a clock on the surface of Earth. The gravity itself affects how the clock ticks. So you're probably imagining a physical clock, and that's true, but like what's the basis of that? It's like our atomic processes themselves. Right? So you would experience reality fairly normal, right? The difference in space-time curvature would basically affect how your clock is relative to everything else. Again, that's where the relativity part comes in.
I think you just blew the minds of like our entire audience.
So of the
except for the one guy who's like, he's totally wrong. It's actually this. Sorry, guy.
So somebody is standing on Jupiter, which has much higher gravity than that of Earth.
No surface, but yeah.
Well, okay, hypothetically.
In orbit around Jupiter.
Spot. I'm floating right on the cloud. Right on there, yeah.
But it's like, if another planet in our solar system, like, you could just stand on there, like, you would age slower. Well,
so these effects are very tiny.
Like, okay.
It's enough that the error on a GPS calculation or triangulation would be sizable. It would not work for our military. We couldn't fit the thing into the hole that we need, right? Nanosecond differences absolutely matter there. These are going to be really substantial if you're close to black holes and like exotic things not around here. If you're close to Jupiter, your clock is definitely going to tick different than if you're on Earth. And we just have to be able to synchronize all this stuff. If you travel at some speed, a moving clock ticks slower. And that's the special relativistic stuff. What I was talking about previously is all general relativity. Pause.
Everybody's just processing information.
Yeah.
I think that's fascinating.
What do most of the time travel movies do? Magic. Right?
Magic.
There's time streams.
Yeah.
So with general relativity, you can start talking about how space and space-time itself can be morphed, right? In principle, you could have a wormhole, a bridge of sorts connecting to space-time spots, if you will.
Oh my gosh.
So there's a physical mechanism in principle, but again, to do that kind of stuff requires just stuff like exotic matter.
There's been like a
Just
lot
totally
of
bizarre stuff out there. Right?
there's been a lot of movies that have kind of tried to use that idea of a wormhole for the purpose like space travel that would be in a sense almost like time travel. I can't remember any offhand, but I know I've seen it.
Yeah,
Star Trek.
I guess Contact basically has
Okay,
a wormhole. Contact has the most realistic wormhole.
Oh no,
Oh no!
the time guy froze.
Oh,
He's frozen in time.
Too close to a black hole. He's frozen. We're experiencing time normally, and he's just slowed down.
right when we were getting to talk about probably the most interesting one, which is Contact. Wes, do you have a way of contacting outside of?
Haha.
For those of you, are we gonna cut this part out?
I don't know.
No! And he's gone. I hope he didn't lose power.
I hope so.
We're gonna get rolling blackouts starting tomorrow. I don't know about Arkansas.
For everybody in the chat, stand by.
He said too much.
Yeah,
He
the
said too much.
big time cut him off. Like Timex, man, they're watching us.
Or there was the what's the Marvel group, the Time Authority,
Yeah, TVA, yeah.
the TVA.
Time Variance Authority, yeah.
Man,
Owen Wilson got to him.
Contact is one of those
So
ones. That I
let's
haven't
talk
watched
about
in a long
Contact while he's
time.
not here. If we can get him back in, then we can get him back in.
Yeah.
So
Contact didn't specifically deal with like time travel, did it? Just space travel.
I think it's hard to. I'm out of my depth and even really talking about this intelligently. Wes, you could probably do a better job than I can.
it's been a couple years since I've seen it, but they build the second machine, and Jodie Foster gets in it, and they drop her, and she transported to another place, and spoke with. I could be confusing the movie with the book, but she spoke with an alien that took the form of her dad, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
And she did all the stuff that happened to her, like while she was there talking, and her video camera was like recording it and all this stuff. But relative to everyone else that wasn't in that spacecraft or in the craft, she just fell straight through and nothing happened. So I think I don't necessarily think of that one as a time travel movie per se.
Time dilation movie.
But maybe just like the physics of being relative of something experiencing or someone experiencing something at a different rate than someone else.
But you know
from
what?
that
I think we can justify that as time travel. It's just a different type of time travel. If you think about the idea of space flight and getting somewhere that's really far away, getting to it in a reasonable amount of time based on our human lives, you'd almost have to be able to change the nature of time, be able to travel that distance. And I think that's kind of what it was suggesting.
Right.
So I would qualify it.
Would you qualify Arrival as a time travel movie?
I don't remember enough of it other than Charlie Sheen and some weird alien.
Amy Adams.
Oh, there's a movie called The Arrival. That's what I was thinking of.
I don't remember.
Right. Oh,
time
that
travel.
one.
Yeah, but
I remember, but I don't remember.
I watched that on an airplane, so that's not the best venue to remember things.
It was cool, but
yeah,
I don't remember those details.
She can perceive. Well, she can experience the future and the past at any given moment.
Oh crap! That's right. Yeah.
Pseudo time travel. Time perception.
That's a great one.
I just think it's in a lot of different forms, and I think that's part of the problem too. And it's a problem that Back to the Future, or even like the Time Machine, the old Time Machine movie,
I love that movie.
I do too, but I think it's partially responsible for when we think of a vehicle that transports us physically to a different time, as opposed to something that might be more psychological in nature.
Like the organic, it's people perceiving things and beings perceiving things at different rates. And
you talk about people that have experienced very interesting, possibly illegal substances. Talk about traveling in a very interesting way. So there might be very well be a psychological aspect to it.
Judge Dredd? Because doesn't the stuff that they take in Judge Dredd slow down time?
Which version, the original movie or the new one?
No, the new one.
I never saw it. The Carl Urban one. I never
Carl
saw it.
Urban. Because you were talking about substances. Because in that one, they take a substance and it slows down their perception of time, so that they see time like really slowly.
That's like changing the rate of time, but not really traveling. I don't know.
Yeah.
As far as like, I mean, if we're talking about movies that have different perceptions of amount of time for different characters, one or in other mediums, like I always think back to the episode of Star Trek Next Generation called The Inner Light. You guys ever remember that one?
Oh yeah.
So for those that haven't seen it, the Enterprise encounters a space probe that is of an unknown origin, and it basically scans them, and it affects Captain Picard, and basically he kind of like wakes up in his mind. He kind of like wakes up and he's in a weird place with a family he doesn't know and all these things, and basically the space probe had him
Experience a lifetime
and live a lifetime. He basically grows old, has kids, kind of forgets him. He like kind of gives up on trying to figure out how to get out of there to get back to the Enterprise, and he just basically he accepts it and just lives his life, and he actually dies of old age, and has like grandchildren and stuff. And then when when he dies, he kind of comes to on the bridge of the Enterprise, and to everyone else, it was like a passage of like a couple seconds. But he has all the experiences that were like within those couple seconds of an entire life. He even like learned how to play the flute. And then after, like you see this in the episode, and then after he comes back, so to speak, when he wakes up, he still retains that knowledge of how to play the flute and everything, and all that other life within a second. And it's sort of the way for this alien species to share how their culture was in the past. And that's basically the purpose of the probe, is that it would just basically like tell stories through this like experience that it would just give to people as they came across it, as like a time capsule in a way, which is really cool. Because
the whole planet died, right?
Right, it's a lost civilization.
That probe was their swan song, because we used that last week. Their swan song to share their culture with the rest of the universe, because they weren't there anymore.
I thought, like, when I first saw that as like a teenager, it like blew my mind, and I still like think about it a lot, actually, in terms of just like favorite episodes for sure. But just
that episode is the reason why I learned to play the penny whistle.
Oh, there you
go. Because I played the flute when I was in junior high, and watched that episode and started playing the penny whistle.
I shared that episode to my daughter a couple years ago. She was like 8 or something, and it like totally melted her brain, but in a good way. Like it just kind of just like how I remember Back to the Future affecting me as a kid, watching in the theaters, just kind of never thinking about things like that, and especially in those contexts. And it's just amazing. Like I think it's a great episode. If you haven't seen it, or even if you're not even into Star Trek, I recommend watching the episode, because it requires like little other like sci-fi Star Trek knowledge, even if you don't have an interest in it. It's a good, just from a good storytelling perspective, definitely worth it.
I concur. There is a big one that we haven't mentioned yet, and we just experienced it. Groundhog's Day.
That's a great one.
That is
a great one.
Would you consider that time traveling, or maybe just a time loop?
It still counts.
Is there a difference?
I was going to bring up a movie that had a time loop in it with Prisoner of Azkaban. That has a time loop in it. I thought they did a pretty good job on.
Oh, yeah. Because yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another one that kind of does it right, because it's not like parallel dimensions and whatnot. Like, it's already happened. That's why Harry decides to save himself, because he realized he had already saved himself in the past, so he had to save him. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good one.
which is also a little bit of a paradox too. That can make your head hurt.
Yup.
Well, anytime travel can make your head hurt. Back to the Future, especially. Oh my gosh.
That one doesn't make my head hurt at all. And I'll admit, maybe it's blind acceptance, but that one seems simpler. Regardless of the science being so-called wrong, it feels a lot simpler to follow in some ways.
Or the fact that there's another Marty out there, that the Marty that we follow takes over his life in this alternate timeline that he created in the past. And you're like, oh, there's another.
In fact, I think Back to the Future 2, it was really interesting how they had that one scene where it happens a lot of times in movies where a scene is specifically to explain something to the audience, but in the movie it's meant to explain something to the character, but it's really to explain something to the audience. The idea of the primary timeline and then the forked timeline that was created. I think that was the first time I'd ever seen that. When I was like, 8. Not that I would see it at a whole lot of other places, but it worked really well in getting that idea across. This is kind of fun.
Endgame. I guess Endgame did that too, huh?
While referencing Back to the Future, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
And Hot Tub Time Machine, I think.
Yes. They called BS on Back to the Future's mechanics of time also. Endgame claims to have a better explanation of it.
So some folks in the chat brought up another movie that I forgot about, but I also loved, and I need to show this to my daughter, is Frequency. That's a great time travel movie.
It is a great movie. I don't remember a whole lot about it, other than
Is that the one where the dad talks to his son through the radio? And
the radio.
The Aurora Borealis, yeah. Yep.
I've never seen that one.
Oh, highly recommended. I won't spoil it.
I know of it.
Yeah, it's
Dennis
amazing.
Quaid?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. It's really good.
Do we have contact again?
I hope so.
Oh, we can hear
We
you.
have audio.
What's
Yep.
up, guys?
So we were just talking about Contact.
All right,
Awesome.
now we got Ross back. Welcome back, sir.
Sorry about that. I think
So-
I just figured out. I think my router decided it doesn't like Discord.
Oh.
All of a sudden, I'm getting 502 errors, and it works on my cellular network.
We just figured that like Big Time X, since we're talking about time, they decided to come in and like interrupt your
You
The
said
time
too much.
authority.
Yeah, you said too much. Sorry, sir.
So what are your thoughts on Contact?
Absolutely love the book, for sure. Whatever the case, there's lots of influence there from a physicist named Kip Thorne. If you're not familiar with him, read his works. He's fascinating.
He's
For
the
some
one
reason.
that Interstellar. He helped write the script for Interstellar and for
I think I heard
Tenet.
that before too. Nice.
Yeah, he was an advisor for those two movies with Christopher Nolan.
I say the book particularly because I like the ending and all that much better.
Was there anything specifically about Contact that caught your attention in terms of the science or the time travel aspect of it?
Was the discussion of like wormholes and general relativity, right? He at least made an attempt at some of those cooler aspects of physics. Maybe it just kind of aligned with what I was studying at the time, right? Got really into it. He clearly had talked to physicists before writing the book, or while writing it. Right?
So, are there any others that you enjoy? We kind of talked about a few while you were away.
Oh, good. Not Hot Tub Time Machine. I haven't seen that, right?
And in terms of time travel, we were also talking about the different ideas of how the time travel works. So, in like the original, I never read the book, but the Time Machine, the old one from like the 1960s, I think it was.
H.G. Wells.
H.G. Wells, I think it was, and even like Back to the Future, the mechanism is like some sort of vehicle that would transport you to a different time. And then Contact is different because it's time travel, but it's almost like traveling a distance that you wouldn't physically be able to travel.
Yeah, it's still like that magic device.
Mhm.
You press a button, it takes you somewhere else. They at least took a lot more effort in trying to make it more believable, right? Here's Santa's sleigh. We put some lights on it and a hand crank or whatever. It works, right? At least there's that whole process of like decoding the messages or whatever and constructing the whole thing. At least from a physicist perspective, that idea of the wormholes end being a three-dimensional thing really intrigued me.
And you haven't seen Interstellar, that's correct?
I have not.
Oh, you need to watch Interstellar.
We can pause and I'll take your shame.
That's all right. But Dad,
There's
I
always
want your
more
feedback
content
now.
to be consumed than we can consume.
Yeah.
And just to be fair, Sean, the original Time Machine was actually written in 1895 to give like some. It's just amazing how far back that was.
Well, I mean, I know the book goes back, a long time. Just I never read the book. I could only reference the film that I had seen, so that's my only point of reference for it.
But it's interesting because you think of it as like a modern invention, but that's quite old. It's pretty neat.
Yeah. Of course, he had also, that was just that narrative tool, right?
Sure.
They didn't have special relativity by then and all. As far as like their physics in his time, in H.G. Wells' time, there's space, right? And space is a function of time. Right? Where we're at just depends on what time it happens to be. Einstein really brought us that radical shift. Right? Again, it sounds like I need to really watch Interstellar.
Or do you watch The Science at all on YouTube? Do you watch a lot of YouTube videos?
Yeah.
Do you watch The Science?
Oh, The Science?
The Science. It's a series called The Science.
Okay.
And it's very geeky. They talk about the physics of video games.
Oh, nice.
And so he breaks down, he basically deconstructs video games using physics and how some things would work and wouldn't work. And it is one of my favorite shows of all time on YouTube. I wish he made more, but as few videos as he makes, they are fantastic. I would highly recommend them if you haven't already seen them.
Check that out. Yeah,
you should.
I really like the PBS Space Time. If you've ever watched any of those, consume it. If you're really interested in like the forefront of physics kind of stuff, or the head scratching kind of sciencey stuff, where to go.
Are there any current, experiments or anything being done with relation to time travel that you think are interesting right now?
Oh, with time travel,
or just even within your field of like physics specifically of what you've been following for a while.
The really neat stuff, I think, is like gravitational wave astronomy. Like we can essentially turn radio telescopes all across Earth into one like super telescope. And I don't know if y'all recall from a few years ago, like, hey, check out this image from a black hole. We got a fuzzy image of something at the center of another galaxy. Like, it's just absolutely astonishing. We used a telescope the size of Earth to probe gravitational waves. That kind of stuff I think is pretty fascinating.
That is
time
fascinating.
travel specifically, you're probably not going to see many experiments, or at least funded stuff. Maybe there's like some skunkworks projects out there.
I was mainly asking given the topic of the show, but yeah.
The fascinating stuff is in like the quantum realm, right? Once you start getting in, I guess it's
The Scott Lang
time
territory.
travel in
Yeah.
a sense, but it's more of the causality, cause and effect kind of stuff. Like you can create an entangled pair of photons, for instance, and do all this fascinating stuff, like a ghost image. I don't know if y'all have heard about this. You take two photons that are generated together; they're entangled. You shoot one downfield; it interacts with an object. You create an image with the other one. You exploit their quantum effect, essentially. Once you observe one, you understand properties about the other. There's, again, some wacky physicists imaged a little thing on one side of a room with photons that never touch the object. Those kinds of things that absolutely fascinate me.
Oh my gosh.
It reminds me of a movie I saw probably 10 to 15 years ago at this point. And it was my first introduction, and I don't know how valid the content was, but like the first introduction to quantum physics and what quantum physics are. And I think they cover a couple of things that you were mentioning right there. The name of the film was really weird. It's called What the Bleep Do We Know? I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but I bought it because I was that fascinated by it. I don't know how legitimate a lot of the content is. I know some of it might be. Oh, okay. So you're familiar with what I'm talking about? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, just the idea that they were presenting, I thought was really fascinating. It got me enough to look into some of those things. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's not going to knock that specifically because that's gotten a lot of people interested in physics, right? I can actually recommend a book for y'all called How the Hippies Saved Physics.
That sounds fun.
So it wasn't hippies coming up with theories that take over physics. It was, hey, I'm going to come up with these theories about quantum physics. And all these people proving them wrong came up with quite a lot of fascinating stuff, like modern quantum physics as we understand it. Like quantum cryptography, computations, all that fun stuff. The Copenhagen model was made in 1928 or so, right? There's this lull. A lot of people coming up with these ideas like, oh, we're going to explain supernatural things with this new quantum physics, right? Well, the hippies, they didn't say physics directly. It was, hey, look, I'm wrong. Or, I'm just going to say something, and someone's going to disprove me, whatever, right? So that kind of ties in with that principle. How do you get a correct answer on the internet? Just say something wrong.
Right. That is so cool.
Right. Definitely recommend the book. It's more elegant than me.
Wes, you think it's about that time?
To talk about Terminator? Sure. Let's do it.
All right.
Can't talk about time travel and not a naked Arnold Schwarzenegger. But yeah. Yeah.
Maybe
I think for a part two, we'll save that one.
There you go.
I'm sure, like, even after the show's done, we'll probably come up with 10 or 15 others. So, might help.
I mean, Superman is a time travel movie.
Space travel, time travel.
Oh yeah, can you fly around the planet in the reverse direction or reverse time?
We wish. Actually, somebody analyzed that video. I think I have to find him on Twitter. Whatever the case. You look frame by frame, he was actually going like 0.07% the speed of light or whatever. They got that completely
We're
wrong.
talking about Superman, right?
Yeah, when he was
Okay,
running
all right.
around Earth.
Want to be on the same page. Okay.
He was not going faster than the speed of light.
I'm glad we debunked that.
Yep.
Yeah.
But we would like to thank our patrons over at patreon.com/makinggeeks for help keep the show on the air with all their financial contributions week to week. We appreciate each and every one of you, especially the top patrons. Yes, you know who they are. We have Square Splinter, Jordan Rimple, and Clinton from C3D Prop Shop. Thank you so much for your support.
So, what are you guys geeking out about this week?
I'm geeking out about the Muppet Show coming back and WandaVision.
Tomorrow.
Both of them are tomorrow. Yup. And supposedly, the last 3 episodes of WandaVision are going to be an hour long each, supposedly. Which would make them, if that's correct, the remaining 3 episodes to be as long as all the stuff we've already gotten from the previous episodes, for the most part. Because each of those were previously about 30 minutes long. So, if that's true, I hope it is. That'd be good.
I love that these shows that are made for internet streaming don't have to fit into any certain time constraint. And I think it just has made a better opportunity for storytelling.
Look at Mandalorian, 25 minutes, 45 minutes, 50 minutes, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, it was all
That being said, that made me mad with Mandalorian, because I'm like, really? Like 10 minutes of this are just like credits in multiple languages.
Yeah, that too.
And the recap from the beginning. Like, come on.
I didn't say they always made good use of the time, just the fact that they have that opportunity.
Yeah, I agree.
Did the thing that I'm geeking out about, did you guys watch the Perseverance landing on Mars today?
Yes, I did.
I couldn't.
That was I watched it on NASA on their site, and it was so cool. It was so cool. I mean, it's not like you can see what's going on because you're just watching people in a room. Like it's all you're really watching. But just understanding the implications of everything that led up to this point, and them going through, okay, we're at this stage, and you've got your little computer-generated diagram that shows you like where they're at, and to just realize that on a whole other planet, there's a robot that we sent there that's gonna take pictures and drill holes and maybe.
And while we
It's
were
got a
watching,
little helicopter.
yeah,
precursor
ingenuity,
to us
yeah.
going there one day. It's amazing, and it was so cool to see and have. Gosh, what was her name that narrated the whole thing? Regine? I don't know. She did a really good job. Whatever her name is, she did a fantastic job of describing everything that was going on and whatnot. It was very enjoyable to watch. I was geeking out.
And
about
knowing
part.
that while you're watching it, it could have already destroyed itself, and we're just now finding out about it.
Yeah,
Like, that's time travel right there.
That in Discord. Oh my gosh. You're like, it could have blown up already. I'm like, don't say that.
But it's like the Schrodinger's cat. Like, you don't know. Like, it could have been blown up. It could not have been blown up. Like, both are equally possible right now, because we don't know.
Maybe somebody didn't do their unit conversions right. And it
Right.
bounced off of Mars atmosphere.
Thanks a lot,
that
Europe.
happened.
I know. That's what he's referencing.
Yep.
Because
Thanks a lot, Metric.
Yeah, metric and imperial. Oh, that's what I was geeking out about.
That's a good one.
Same. I'm geeking out about maybe I'll get out of the house in a few days. So,
It's
That's
a little
definitely
thing.
something to geek out about, yeah. I'm geeking out about the Snyder Cut of Justice League coming out. Mainly from a point of view of it being better than the original version. I was talking to my brother about this a couple days ago, and it was, he'd watched the trailer and said, "Oh yeah, it looks so much better now." And I'm just worried that it's a polishing the turd type situation.
Well, they basically have reshot a whole different movie now, right?
I don't know how extensive though. I know they've reshot a lot of different things. I don't know how much it's going to change the story or change the feeling of the movie. I'm hopeful. I want to like it. I'll definitely watch it and give it a shot. But I don't know. I'm geeking out about it because I don't know.
It's new.
It's a
It's new
second
media
chance.
to
Yeah.
When does
consume.
it come out?
I don't remember the date,
it
but I think
March?
it's soon.
Yeah.
I think it is March.
HBO Max, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Good choice.
Well, it's that time in the show to remind everybody that we have a website. And on that website, on the homepage of the site, you can find all of our past episodes and listen to them right there in your web browser. We also have a contact page where you can get a hold of us directly and ask questions for us, suggestions about the show, anything you want right there on the site. It's at makinggeeks.com.
And we all do our own little social media, so you can come find us. If you want to see what I'm up to, you can come find me at Once Upon a Workbench. Sean can be found at Geek Builders. Wes is found at Geeksmithing. And are you on social media? I mean, I'm assuming you're on social media.
MySpace, man. MySpace.
Yeah. Well, we did talk about MySpace, but
LiveJournal.
I'm on Instagram. Ross Makes.
okay. So come check us out.
You can find new episodes of the podcast every Saturday on your favorite podcast player of choice. I want to thank everybody that was in the live chat and contributed to the conversation. It's always great having you along for the ride. And a special thanks to our special guest, Dr. Ross Carroll. Thank you so much.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks for having me.
I feel like I had a great intro into so many different things that I'm just fascinated about. I want to go read right now. So,
Awesome.
and maybe an Advil because, wow, my head's spinning. A lot of things to take in. Thanks again. Thanks everybody for